In recent years, the language of therapy has crept out of the counselor's office and into everyday life. Words like toxic, boundaries, narcissist, gaslighting, and emotional labor are now a part of our daily conversations, not just in professional spaces but between friends, couples, and even strangers online. On the surface, this sounds like a win. After all, emotional intelligence and mental health awareness are essential. But here's the twist. When therapy language is taken out of context, misused, or weaponized, it starts doing the exact opposite of what it was meant for. It begins to destroy relationships instead of healing them. Let's start with a scenario. Imagine a couple arguing. Instead of saying, "I felt hurt when you cancelled our plans," one partner accuses the other of violating their emotional boundaries. Instead of trying to understand what went wrong, they throw around labels like gaslighter or emotionally unavailable. And just like that, what could have been a meaningful discussion turns into a clinical breakdown of faults, diagnoses, and blame. No vulnerability, no intimacy, just a battle of who can sound more therapeutically aware. This is where the problem begins. We're replacing raw emotion with cold terminology. Instead of saying, "I'm scared you'll leave me," we say, "You triggered my abandonment wound." Instead of saying, "I'm angry," we say, "You're toxic." This shift might feel empowered in the moment, but it actually distances us from each other. It gives us a shield to hide behind, a vocabulary that sounds deep, but actually avoids the real depth of emotional connection. The biggest irony? Real therapy is not about assigning blame or using jargon to win arguments. It's about self-reflection, taking accountability, and learning how to truly connect with others, even when it's uncomfortable. But when therapy talk is misused outside that safe space, it often becomes a weapon, not a tool. It allows us to pathologize normal human behavior. Suddenly, someone being late becomes a lack of respect for my boundaries. A partner who forgets to text back is now emotionally neglectful. We jump to conclusions and diagnoses instead of leaning into curiosity, communication, and understanding. Let's talk about the rise of armchair psychology. Social media has made us all feel like amateur therapists. One 60-second video on narcissism, and suddenly we're convinced our boss, our ex, and maybe even our parents all fit the bill. But here's the truth. Most of us are not trained to understand complex mental health issues. We're taking serious terms, meant to describe patterns of behavior across time, in context, and under professional evaluation, and applying them based on one bad interaction or a viral checklist. The result? Relationships suffer. We stop giving people the benefit of the doubt. We stop forgiving small mistakes. We view every disagreement as a red flag and every emotional reaction as trauma. It makes intimacy almost impossible because we're too busy analyzing people to actually experience them. We're taught to protect ourselves so much that we forget how to let others in. We build emotional walls, not healthy boundaries. One of the most dangerous side effects of this trend is the disappearance of accountability. It becomes easy to blame the other person using therapy speak. "I had to cut them off for my mental health" can sometimes be another way of saying, "I didn't want to deal with the discomfort of a hard conversation." And yes, sometimes cutting ties is necessary. But not every conflict is abuse. Not every argument is toxic. Not every bad feeling means trauma. And here's something that gets lost in the noise. Relationships are supposed to be hard sometimes. They require patience, compromise, and the willingness to face discomfort. But therapy talk often paints relationships as effortless if they're healthy. So the moment it gets tough, people walk away. They say, "This doesn't feel safe," when in reality it's just unfamiliar or emotionally intense. What we forget is that safety in a relationship doesn't always feel warm and cozy. Sometimes it feels like two people sitting in the mess, working through pain, staying even when it's not convenient. That's where trust is built. That's where love deepens. But when therapy language is used to avoid discomfort instead of work through it, we miss those moments entirely. Let's also talk about how this trend creates emotional inequality in relationships. The person with more therapy fluency ends up dominating the conversation. They know all the right words. You're projecting. You have an anxious attachment style. You're being avoidant. But instead of helping, it creates a power imbalance. The other person feels silenced, like they can't defend themselves without sounding emotionally ignorant. That's not healing. That's intellectual bullying dressed up in self-awareness. And ironically, this kind of hyper-therapeutic communication actually makes us worse at real intimacy. Because intimacy isn't built on perfect language or therapeutic scripts. It's built on messy, honest, vulnerable conversations. It's built on showing your rawest self, even when it doesn't sound eloquent or trauma-informed. Love isn't a diagnosis. It's a connection, a felt sense, a presence. Now, this doesn't mean we should abandon therapy language altogether. Concepts like boundaries, triggers, and attachment styles have real value when used correctly. But we need to remember the difference between therapy as a tool for growth and therapy speak as a defense mechanism. One leads to deeper relationships. The other just makes us feel more alone while sounding self-aware. So how do we fix this? Start by dropping the labels in your daily conversations. Instead of saying, "You triggered me," try saying, "That really hurt." Instead of calling someone toxic, try saying, "I feel overwhelmed when you speak to me that way." Use simple, human language. Speak from the heart, not the handbook. Remember, therapy language should be a bridge to understanding, not a barrier. Second, bring back curiosity. When someone upsets you, ask questions. Don't jump to conclusions or diagnoses. Say, "Help me understand what you meant by that." Or, "I'm feeling hurt, but I want to understand your side too." That's where real connection starts. And finally, get comfortable with discomfort. Relationships are not supposed to be perfectly regulated emotional spaces. They're living, breathing, chaotic, beautiful things. You will misunderstand each other. You will get triggered. You will hurt and be hurt. But that doesn't always mean it's unsafe or unhealthy. Sometimes it just means you're human. So let's stop trying to sound like therapists and start trying to be better partners, friends, and people. Let's trade the vocabulary of distance for the language of closeness. Let's choose connection over correctness. Because at the end of the day, relationships aren't healed by diagnoses. They're healed by empathy, honesty, and love. If this message resonated with you, if you've noticed the shift in how we talk about love and conflict, leave a comment below and let's start a real conversation. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more deep dives like this, and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Remember, healing begins when we stop talking about each other and start talking to each other. Thanks for watching.